Hello everybody, it's Warhammer here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are playing on the Tomb of the Shifting Sands as the Lizardmen against the force of the Dowie, led by Shetland Apache, so you guys most likely recognize him. He's a rather good player, has quite a, oftentimes has all sorts of replays on Party Elite and whatnot, but yeah, it's a bit of an interesting matchup. The Lizardmen generally have a pretty rough one here against the Dwarfs, but Shetland messing around with some gyrocopters by the look of it, so it's definitely going to be a bit of an interesting match. I do apologize ahead of my time for my voice and any occasional coughing. Father Nurgle has kind of blessed me with his pestilence, and yeah, so I've been a bit sick. Getting a little better now, but still a bit sore in the throat. Regardless, going over the build here, this is definitely a bit of a try-hard Lizardman build. Not entirely sure it's tournament legal. I think there might be just one too many Temple Guard in here, but it's definitely a reasonable build. It's very swarmy, but I've had some good success with it so far. My Lord running a Slan Mage Priest of High Magic. Now he's pretty stripped down. He's only got his Shield of the Old Ones, Banishment, Hand of Glory, Apotheosis, Greater Arcane Conduit, Cold-Blooded, and Shield of Sapphire. In hindsight, Tempest might actually not be a bad pick against the Dwarves because they can bring gyrocopters with brimstone guns, but or gyrocopters in general. But I did not do that. Regardless, he's very, very cheap like this. Like 1,300 gold gives you your caster and lord all in one, and can really provide some good support. Hand of Glory makes Temple Guard much better at cleaving through Dowie infantry, and of course, Apotheosis helps heal your troops. Alongside him, we do have two units of, or two Skink Chiefs. These guys, not much to be said for them. They're a good sniper unit. They'll also help zone away gyrocopters. They're really, really good against Slayers. They can kind of chip away at them and kill them over time very, very efficiently. And just a pretty potent unit. One of definitely really solid in this matchup. And they're once again very cheap. They're only 450 apiece. Alongside that, too, and especially against Giant Slayers, they're amazing because they kill a model a shot. So you can basically wipe a unit of Giant Slayers for like 450 gold. We do have two units of Chameleon Skinks in the back here, providing some additional shooting support. I've been messing around with a little bit more DACA because of gyrocopters, and it's just incidentally that's what happened here. So surprise, surprise. For our front line, 4 units of Temple Guard. Like I said, this might not be quite tournament legal. Temple Guard, though, really solid against Dwarves. Now, they won't kill them quickly, but they will kill them eventually. If you got a lot of HP, they hit pretty hard. They've got 42 weapons strength. It's AP, okay armor, okay speed. Their weapon stats are all right. There's not much to be said for them. And they are anti-large, which isn't really great against dwarves, but their stats are good enough to cut through the dwarves over time. And they actually have very high attack speed for halberds, one of the best in the game. So they will definitely chop through longbeards and that sort of stuff very, very efficiently. On the flanks of them, 2 Saurus warriors on either end. Not much to be said. These guys will also beat longbeards down. They're going to beat the lower end infantry pretty efficiently. And honestly, with their high weapon strength and reasonable survivability, they're definitely a decent choice. Finally, on either flank, we do have some Skinks, cohorts. Not much to be said for these guys. They're just there to swamp my opponent, buy me time, stall, get artillery pieces knocked out, tie down Slayers, that sort of thing. No cavalry in this build, though. So normally I have been sort of running cavalry-heavy builds with the Lizardmen against the Dwarves, and I decided to try something a little different. Monsters are really, in my opinion, a no-go in this matchup. They're just a terrible idea, in my opinion, because Dwarves will just gun them down. Now for Apache, he did decide to bring 3 units of gyrocopters with brimstone guns who are immediately pushing forward to harass. Incidentally, when I saw his model count at the beginning of the game, I was like, crap, it's going to be a gyro spam, and I didn't bring much AA. But only 3 units, so actually not that heavy. For his lord, he did bring Thorgrim, another interesting choice. Not something you see every day, but Thorgrim coming in with the High King buff, with Great Book of Grudges, and Stand Your Ground, so decent lineup of abilities. Surprisingly, no melee defense debuff, so perhaps not anticipating having to face off with a mob of infantry, maybe. Front line composed entirely of longbeards, or actually 3 longbeards, as well as a single unit of miners on the flank. 2 units of thunderers in the back. Cannon here in the center, popping shots already at my poor Saurus warriors. 2 giant slayers behind that. These guys are nasty against big dinos. And then a runesmith with Wrath and Ruin and Rune of Negation. So it's a very potent lineup of abilities there. But a very small build. Normally what I see when I face off against dwarf players in this matchup is these super wide builds. These very difficult to crack onions. And this is a much more compact build, so looking at this, definitely that is a little bit of an advantage for me, is that it's much easier for me to see us around. Now, unfortunately, though, Apache has kind of deployed here in the corner. It's not fully in the corner. He's not like corner camping or something, but it is going to make it a little more difficult to envelop him because he can kind of plug these gaps with his Slayers and Miners in a last-second fashion. Not super amazingly, but he can do it, definitely, at least to an extent. It's going to be a little rough for me to maneuver. In the meantime, the gyros are being a pain in the rear, but, you know, they're actually... The thing about dinos is they have such high HP per model that gyrocopters actually don't kill them very... Brimstone guns can't actually kill a Temple Guard in a single shot, which is bad. But right now, all the models lost have been to this cannon, which we're just going to have to suffer through and accept. We're just going to have to push in. I kind of figured, whatever, you know, take a few losses, who gives a damn. In the meantime, these very annoying gyrocopters with brimstone guns are chipping away at my Salon Mage Priest of high magic. Not much I can do about that, but he does have a built-in 40% missile resist, so they're not going to be that effective. And in the meantime, our skinks and our skink chiefs are pushing forward, pressuring these gyros, just keeping them on their toes, making them continuously back the hell away. And forcing them to stay away. Now, if I had a Tempest in this situation, it would actually be really useful. Now, gyrocopters, I don't entirely know how Tempest damage work, if it's AP or non-AP, or if it's just direct damage type thing. But probably it would be pretty potent. I might have to try that out sometime. Might actually be worth bringing to control gyros. Because even if I could just tie them down to get shot to death by the Chameleon Skinks, that could be very useful. And it's not like I'm going to be using that much Winds of Magic anyway. After all, this build... Hand of Glory, Apotheosis, both dirt cheap spells to be spammed, so not much to be said there. In the meantime, though, we are flanking. You can see we have taken quite a bit of punishing fire. These poor Temple Guards here have been hit by Rune of Wrath and Ruin, Thunder Fire. We counteract with a little bit of Apotheosis. The cannon, though, is also taking some chunks out of them. It is going to shortly shift targets onto the poor Salon Mage Priest, but still, it's definitely been a bit of a rough situation. In the meantime, some Thunder Fire is going in on the Skink Chiefs, but honestly not going to be the most effective, and we're going to cast the Banishment, one of our only bound spells here. We're going to drop down these Thunders, trying to pick them up and toss them around, and of course these Thunders are not going to hold up very well. We actually luck out there. The RNG favors us for once, and although the Banishment does eventually travel off, it did quite a bit of damage there. Picks up a few of these Slayers as well, ruining their day and really hurting these stunties. In the meantime, though, the cannon and the gyros are all focusing super hard on my Salon Mage Priest. My anti-air course doing its very best to try to keep them away, trying to shoo away these annoying gyrocopters. And we actually shoot one down. You can see it goes plummeting to earth there. The Temple Guard, in the meantime, roided up with Hand of Glory, up to 58 melee attack, chewing through these Longbeards pretty efficiently. With their high melee defense, these guys will definitely be able to hold rather well against the counterattacks from the Longbeards, even with Thorgrim providing his buffs in there. In the meantime, on this flank over here, we are sort of swarming all over, getting a surround over here. The Saurus pile into the Giant Slayers, and this is actually going to be pretty favorable for me. Now, Saurus are probably going to lose this in the long run. Giant Slayers are just such a powerful damage unit, but they're going to trade very, very efficiently because they do have that 52 weapons strength. Giant Slayers have no armor and fairly low melee defense, so it should be pretty good. Unfortunately, though, the Salon Mage Priest here getting pummeled into oblivion down to 700 HP. I hit myself with cold-blooded, trying to save myself last second, and just did not cut the mustard. And so the Salon Mage Priest in full route now. And this could be rough. Now, certainly Bounce of Power is about dead center right now. It's certainly not in Shetland's favor necessarily, but if he manages to force off the Salon Mage Priest, leadership could start crumbling. I've got a lot of mauled Temple Guard in here, and a lot of these units, they could just start falling apart, and that would be really, really bad. So in the meantime, though, we have kind of managed to swarm into the backline, which is definitely sort of starting to seal the deal. We actually have one fairly healthy unit of Temple Guard here, overrunning things. The Miners collapsed, and now the Skinks able to swarm all over. These Skinks over here pursued the Thunderers initially, but now they got in on the cannon, shutting it down and saving the Salon Mage Priest at least for a little while, because now the cannon is not firing, and that buys us a little bit of time. Over here, the Chameleon Skinks diving into the Thunderers, tying them down for a little bit. Then, unfortunately, I had both of the Chameleon Skinks in one hockey group. They're both chasing after those gyros over there. But I recognize the mistake and push in. These Thunders are now getting bogged down by Chameleons in melee. Over here in the meantime, the Salon Mage Priest actually rallies, which is incredibly important. These Chameleon Skinks here racing to his aid. One of the good things, of course, is that the gyrocopters have to slow down to the priest's speed, essentially. And because of that, he was able to sort of... we were able to catch up with our Chameleon Skinks and our Skink Chief, get an Apotheosis. Shield of Saffrey goes down, which is another huge buff, giving us that resistance map-wide. In the meantime, things are starting to look grim for the Dawi. They are getting overwhelmed. That Horde of Saurus is just doing too much work. Thunderers in full retreat. A few Giant Slayers and Longbeards sort of holding out here and there. The last few Giant Dwarves over here slugging it out with a horde of Temple Guard. But they are just getting torn apart. Those little Skinks in there. The Skinks are really small, but... either way, these Giant Slayers are not going to last much longer. Down to their last legs. It's literally the last Giant Slayer here, getting chopped to death by a horde of angry Temple Guard. And he gets, he's not quite dead yet. He's not dead. I'm not dead yet. But he finally gets his head chopped off and collapses. And in the meantime, With the Skink Priest coming back, we are rallying. We hit him with a Cold-Blooded to tank through this fire from the Brunestones, and are managing to sort of zone them away pretty efficiently here with our Skink Chiefs, and that's rather important, getting these Brimstone guns out of the way. And you can see that Peppering Fire is doing some work. We actually pick off some models, and that was surprising. The Skink Chiefs were really good at killing models. Over here, these Brimstones also zoned off. And the Chameleon Skinks here break the Thunderers, route them off. It's basically just Thorgrim and his last Bastion here, but we do hit our boys with Hand of Glory, buffing them up, and it's going to be GG for the Forces of the Lizards. So, a fun little game of Lizard on Dwarf. Definitely the builds here, I think Shetland's build was a bit experimental. Obviously, Thorgrim, not really a meta pick, and the Gyrocopters. Personally, I'm not a big fan, though. I've seen some players get some good use out of them, so not really sure how to comment on those. I feel like I don't really have the experience to really critique, but definitely a pretty cool build. This build, pretty fun. I do think Tempest would have been a good idea in hindsight. I should have probably brought it. I could have ditched some chevrons on the Skinks and gotten Tempest, and it would have been much better for me. Temple Guard, surprisingly solid unit in this matchup. I think a lot of people don't use it. Personally, I didn't really use it that much before. Their stats are not great, but they're very tanky. They've got 42 weapon strength, which is really nice. It's AP, and they attack very, very quickly. So with some buffs, they can definitely chew through units fairly efficiently. Now, one thing that could give you issues is something like Nordgrimling's Ironbreakers. I'm not entirely sure how you'd break that with this build. Everything else, though, I think this is decent for, especially the wide builds you tend to see from Dwarf players, are fairly easy to chop up with this many Temple Guard units like that. And so yeah, bit of a solid build. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it's tournament legal. I think you can only have 2 or 3 Temple Guard in tourneys, but definitely still very, very, very nifty. And perhaps if you wanted to bring something against Grimlings, you could make a few cuts here and there, and maybe open a slot for like Croc Scores or something to crack them a little more efficiently. But regardless, well played to Shetland. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it fun and entertaining. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, don't hesitate to post them, and I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.